Why that last hurdle, selling your business, is the highest and how to jump over it. Hi, I'm Josh Horn with Horn Valuation. I help business owners and attorneys with business valuation and building business value. So you've gotten through what you think is the toughest part. You have a business that produces cash flows. You've got a buyer there ready to hopefully buy the business. And you're up to that last hurdle. And this is when it gets toughest. Why is that? Why is this the point at which it gets toughest to actually make the transaction, make the handoff, get it done? Well, I think it comes down to three primary things I've seen. There are probably many others, but three I think of. The first is that at some point, the likely buyer and the seller, it could be you could be the buyer or the seller, there's going to be a realization that the business can't be changed right away. And this creates a conflict because the buyer wants to put their stamp on it and the seller knows what works right now to produce the cash flows it needs to continue to go. And particularly if there's going to be a finance deal, which is often the case, that business has to continue down a certain path for a while, or there is a risk that the buyer isn't going to be able to pay back the bank or the owner or both. So this creates this tension here because the buyer has an entrepreneurial spirit. They want to probably change a lot of things possibly. They may not like the products and services themselves. They may not like the employees, the suppliers, the accountant, the process manual, where the building is, all kinds of things. What else? Family. I think this is always going to be in the room, whether it's discussed or not. I think it needs to get discussed because whether the parties want to say it out loud or not, the families come into this too, particularly if you're a buyer and you're going to be relocating or basically changing schools or whatever that is. There are a lot of factors that come into this. I remember several years ago, I was offered an opportunity to buy into a CPA partnership. And my gut reaction was pretty much immediately no because of family. I didn't want to move to that particular location. I didn't see any positives for my family long term. My wife had a career. This is going to be a factor unless your buyer is single and doesn't have any significant other and or children, those kinds of things. And that's kind of going to be rare a lot of times. What else? Time. It's always about time. And we have, as humans, this difficulty. It's just hardwired into us. What we don't want is the downside. And that's always going to factor into our brains before the upside. The upside could be huge here for our lives, for our family. But what we're going to see initially is, especially as the buyer, is how much time it's going to take to get from where I am to where I want to be. How many things am I going to have to change? And how many months, possibly years, is it going to take to get there? And that's what a lot of times it comes down to. And that's unfortunately why sometimes the buyer gets cold feet or the seller gets cold feet, because they see these things, they read the signals, they know they aren't all in, and they need to move on. How do you work past these things? It's not easy, but I think just get them on the table and talk about it. Don't pretend like they're not there, because they are there. Have some candid and frank discussions. And once you get them out on the table, you may be able to find a way to work through them. You certainly won't be able to work through them if you don't even get them out on the table. If you're the seller, show the buyer the path to get through those things that they want to change, or tell them, if you change this and this, I think you could be in for a rough road, and here's why, and explain to them why. Sell the family on it. Quite frankly, you have to sell the family on it as a buyer and a seller. It has to make sense for both families. And show the buyer how much time it's going to take to do this. What I've seen unfortunately, all too often, as owners as well as executives and high-level businesses, sometimes they don't even really know how much time they're spending in the business. It starts out here, and then it's here, and it's here, and it's here, and it just creeps and creeps and creeps, and before you know it, as an owner, you're working 80 hours a week or more. And you may not really have that documented. You need to find a way to be very honest about that to the potential buyer. Really, what you need to do is find a way to ratchet that down so that it is something that you can actually hand off without scaring away a bunch of potential buyers. These are some of the reasons why that last hurdle is the highest and how you can cross over it. This is Josh Horn, CPA of Horn Valuation. Have a great day. Bye.